In Learning Unit 2 of Accounting 1B, we look at our individual debtor and creditor. We look at how to record the transactions in the debtors and creditors ledgers, how to record in the debtors and creditors control accounts, and then we also look at how to reconcile our debtors and creditors lists with the debtors and creditors control account. Now, there's one more aspect regarding debtors and creditors that we need to discuss. Before a creditor is paid, a reconciliation is prepared between the statement received from the creditor and the records that the business has been keeping regarding that creditor in the creditor's ledger. Because we obviously don't want to end up overpaying our creditor. So we therefore need to look at the transactions that the creditor has recorded and the transactions that the business has recorded and make sure that we have the same transactions before a payment is made to the creditor. Let's just remind ourselves again, what is a creditor? A creditor is a business or a person that the business owes money to. With other words, a creditor is the opposite of a debtor, and we can also refer to them as trade payables or accounts payables. In Learning Unit 2 then of the textbook, if you need to just refresh yourself on it again, you can go and look at example 2.1, which will show you how to do the creditor's ledger and the creditor's list and creditor's control account. At the end of the month, the balance on your creditor's control account should be equal to the total per your creditor's list. And if this is then not the case, we also showed you in Learning Unit 2 how you would go about to reconcile the balance and the total. But also, at the end of the month, the individual balance for a particular creditor should also be the same or equal to the balance that the creditor represents from their side on their statement. And we're going to follow a procedure very similar to what we did in Learning Unit 1 when we were looking at bank reconciliations. So remember, our books are done from the perspective of the business, where they will show the creditor, and a creditor always increases on the credit side. But the statement from the creditor is done from the perspective of the creditor, and the creditor views the business as their debtor. So the same as Learning Unit 1 with the bank statement and the cash books, the two will be opposite from each other. Now, why would there be differences between what the creditor is showing and what we have in our creditor's ledger? There can be a variety of different reasons, including things like errors that could have been made on either side. There could be differences between when a transaction is recorded on the business side versus on the creditor side. There can be amounts that's being disputed between the two businesses, or even a fraud that has taken place. Now, when we come across a difference or an error or an omission, we need to just think it through. We need to decide where is the problem, and then where do we need to make the correction. So if the problem is with the business, so if the business made the mistake, so over here, so if the business made the mistake, they would then need to go and update the creditor's ledger, and in some instances also the creditor's control account, depending on where the mistake was made. If the creditor actually made the mistake, then we are going to make the correction on our creditor's reconciliation statement. So first of all, you just need to decide who made the mistake to determine where we need to make the correction. As you will remember in Learning Unit 1, there are those steps to follow when you prepare a bank reconciliation. And here up on this slide are a similar set of steps that you would follow when you prepare your creditors reconciliation. Again, in essence, you will take your creditors ledger, compare it to your creditors statement, identify the differences, and then decide where you would have to address each of these differences. Let's look at a quick example to just illustrate how you would go about to do something like this. So here we have the creditors ledger, and currently our business is called Traders, and the creditor that we are working with at the moment is Superman Enterprises. And this is the individual account for Superman Enterprises in the creditors ledger of VC Traders. It is for the month of March, and you can see they've had several transactions with the creditor. They've bought some stuff, they've made payments, and they've also returned some inventory. And at the end of the month, that is the balance, 45,400, which VC Traders are showing for this particular creditor. But at the end of the month, they received a statement from Superman Traders or Superman Enterprises. And as you can see here, they have also recorded from their perspective all the transactions that they have had with VC Traders during the month of March. But if we look down here, we see that they have a very different balance to what is shown by VC Traders. So now we have to go and do the investigation to find out why is there a difference between the two balances, and then we have to go about to decide how to address these differences. So on this slide, we can now clearly see, according to the creditor's ledger and this creditor's statement, the two balances at the end of March is drastically different. And we're going to do our little reconciliation in two little tables. We're going to start with the balances that each business has got. So VC Traders shows a 45,400 Rand balance. And remember, in the books of VC Traders, that will be a credit balance. Superman Enterprises, on the other hand, has a balance of 185,450 Rands. And from their perspective, that will be a debit balance. So the first problem that we have encountered is that Superman Enterprises gave a settlement discount to VC Traders when they made the payment on the 2nd of March. That is the transactions over here on the slide. And this settlement discount has not yet been recorded. If you look over here on this side, you will see it has not yet been recorded. So that is going to be our first adjustment. VC Traders need to take into consideration this discount that they got from Superman Enterprises. The next problem that we find, both businesses have got the credit invoice H138, but they are having it at two different amounts. And in the question, they tell us that Superman is the one who recorded this invoice at the incorrect amount. So Superman then has to make a correction for that amount. So remember again, the same as Learning Unit 1, we're only going to work with the difference between the two amounts to make this correction here for Superman Enterprises. And also remember, when you do a question like this, you need to show clearly which of these amounts are you going to add and which of these amounts are you going to subtract. The next problem we come across is that Superman has gone and recorded the same invoice twice. So again, this correction needs to be made by Superman because it was an error on their side. Then we have another problem here. You can see we have a credit note for 5,000 rands. Now, for this one, we've looked at the inventory. We have found that it is faulty, and so we have decided to return it to Superman. But because our business is a little distance away from Superman, they have not yet received these goods that we have returned to them. So we have already recorded that we have returned those items to Superman, but because Superman have not yet received these items back at their warehouse, they obviously have not yet recorded it on their side. So once they receive the items back, they will then subtract that from our balance. Then, during the month of March, Superman has decided to charge us with 1,800 rands interest. So they have got the interest calculation on their monthly statement, but we were not aware that they charged this interest on our account. So we have not yet added it into our creditors ledger. So we still need to add another 1,800 rands to the outstanding balance for Superman Enterprises. So if you look at my calculation, you will see there is the additional 1,800 rands for the interest. The last thing that has happened is right at the very end of the month, VC Traders made a 100,000 rand payment to Superman Enterprises. But because this was done on the very last day of the month, it had not yet reflected on the bank statement for Superman Enterprises, so they were not able to record the payment that we made or VC Traders made to them. So that also explains why there is a difference in the two balances. So we also need to adjust Superman Enterprises with that 100,000 Rand EFT payment. And now that we've made all of our corrections, you can see that now the balance reflected by VC Traders is exactly the same as the balance for Superman Enterprises. So now the only amount that we are still owing to Superman at the end of March is then this 42,750 rands. And if we want to make a further payment to Superman, we'll then use this reconciliation that we've prepared as our remittance advice. We will then email this to Superman Enterprises together with our EFT confirmation slip, so that they will then understand why are we only paying them 42,750 rands and not the full 185 rands 450 that according to their records that we owe them. So this then is just a brief explanation of how we go about to do the reconciliation and what the purpose is of this reconciliation. You can now pause this recording over here, and then you can try this next exercise at home. And once you've completed the exercise, then you can start the recording again, and you can go and look at the answer. You can mark yours against the answer. If you need any further help on this part of Learning Unit 2 that's not covered by the textbook, please get in touch with your lecturer either via email or sending a message via VC Learn so that they can assist you in this regard.